What are the natural causes? Number 1 is continental drift. You may have noticed something peculiar about South America and Africa on a map of the world. Don't they seem to fit into each other like a pieces in a jigsaw puzzle? About 200 million years ago, they were joined together. Scientists believed that back then, the Earth was not as we see it today, but the continents were all part of one large landmass. Proof of this comes from the similarity between plant and animal fossils and broad belt of rocks found on the eastern coastline of South America and western coastline of Africa, which are now widely separated by the Atlantic Ocean. The discovery of fossils of tropical plants in the form of coal deposits in Antarctica has led to the conclusion that this frozen land at some time in the past must have been situated closer to the equator, where the climate was tropical with swamps and plenty of lush vegetation. The continents that we are familiar with today were formed when the landmass began gradually drifting apart, millions of years back. This drift also had an impact on the climate because it changed the physical features of the landmass, their position, and the position of water bodies. The separation of the land masses changed the flow of ocean currents and winds, which affected the climate. This drift of the continents continues even today. The Himalayan range is rising by about 1 millimeter every year because the Indian landmass is moving towards the Asian landmass, slowly but steadily. As you hear the number 1 natural cause of climate change, continental motion by the movement of tectonic plates can affect Earth's climate by the changing of sizes and locations of both land masses and ice caps, and by altering ocean circulation patterns which are responsible for transporting heat around the Earth, which in turn affect atmospheric circulation process. Second natural causes is the volcanoes. When a volcano erupts, it throws out large volumes of sulfur dioxide, water vapor, dust, and ash into the atmosphere. Although the volcanic activity may last only a few days, yet the large volumes of gases and ash can influence climatic patterns for years. Millions of tons of sulfur dioxide gas can reach the upper levels of the atmosphere, called the stratosphere, from a major eruption. The gases and dust particles partially block the incoming rays of the sun, leading to cooling. Sulfur dioxide combines with water to form tiny droplets of sulfuric acid. These droplets are so small that many of them can stay aloft for several years. They are efficient reflectors of sunlight and screen the ground from some of the energy that it would ordinarily receive from the sun. Winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere, called the stratosphere, carry the aerosols rapidly around the globe in either an easterly or westerly direction. Movement of aerosols north and south is always much lower. This should give you some idea of the way by which cooling can be brought about for years after a major volcanic eruption. So how does volcanoes affect our climate? Volcanoes can impact climate change. During major explosive eruptions, huge amount of volcanic gas, aerosol droplets, and ash are injected into the stratosphere. Most of the particles spewed from volcanoes cool the planet by shading incoming solar radiation. The cooling effect can last for months to years depending on the characteristic of the eruption. Number 3 is the Earth tilts. The Earth makes one full orbit around the Sun each year. It is tilted at an angle of 23.5 degrees to the perpendicular plane of its orbital path. For one half of the year when it's summer, the northern hemisphere tilts towards the Sun. In the other half, when it is winter, the Earth is tilted away from the Sun. If there was no tilt, we would not have experienced seasons. Changes in the tilt of the Earth can affect the severity of the seasons. Less tilt means cooler summers and milder winters. In these natural causes, the greater Earth axial tilt angle, the more extreme our seasons are, as each hemisphere receives more solar radiation during its summer when the hemisphere is tilted toward the Sun, and less during winter when it is tilted away. Because Earth is tilted, different latitudes receive different sun angles throughout the year, which affects our climate. Number 4 natural causes is the ocean currents. The oceans are major components of the climate system. They cover about 71% of the Earth and absorb about twice as much of the sun's radiation as the atmosphere of the land surface. Ocean currents move vast amount of heat across the planet, roughly the same amount as the atmosphere does. But the oceans are surrounded by the land masses, so heat transport through the water is through channels. Wind push horizontally against the sea surface and drive ocean current patterns. Certain parts of the world are influenced by ocean currents more than others. The coast of Peru and other adjoining regions are directly influenced by the Humboldt current that flows along the coastline of Peru. The El Nino event in the Pacific Ocean can affect climatic conditions all over the world. So how does ocean currents affect our climate? Ocean currents act as a conveyor belts of warm and cold water, sending heat towards the polar regions and helping tropical area cool off, thus influencing both weather and climate. The ocean doesn't just store solar radiation, it also helps distribute heat around the globe. A warm ocean current that flows toward the poles results in warm air masses that move over land that the current flow past. This causes the climate of that land area to be warmer than it would be otherwise. A cold ocean current that flows toward the equator results in cold air masses affecting the nearby land.
Good morning. So now we were going to discuss what are the human causes of climate change. First, we have greenhouse gas emission. Greenhouse gas emission is a major human cause of climate change, and their sources include transportation, electricity, production, burning fossil fuel in industries, commercial and residential application, agriculture, and land use. Here are the gases included in greenhouse gas emission. We have carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, chlorofluorocarbons, and sulfur hexachloride. These gases accumulate in the atmosphere, blocking heat from escaping, and they don't respond to the temperature changes. When they remain for an extended period in the atmosphere, they are likely to cause climate change. Number 2. Deforestation. Trees capture greenhouse gas such as carbon dioxide, preventing them from accumulating in the atmosphere, which could result in warming our planet. Most forests are getting cleared to create space for agriculture, buildings, and other human activities. Trees take in carbon dioxide and release oxygen to the atmosphere during photosynthesis. Hence, surplus carbon dioxide is stored in the plant to help in growth and development. When we cut trees, the stored carbon dioxide gets emitted to the atmosphere, which contribute to the global warming. Trees also help in regulating regional rainfall, which prevent flood and drought in the area. Cutting down trees influence the rainfall patterns globally. Deforestation also leads to changes in the landscape and the Earth's surface respectively, which lead to increased absorption of energy from the sun that result in global warming leading to change in climate patterns. So how deforestation can cause climate change? When trees are cut down and burned or allowed to rot, their stored carbon is released into the air as carbon dioxide, and it accumulates in the atmosphere that can cause global warming. Number 3. Agriculture. One of the most human causes of climate change through emission of gases and conversion of forests to agricultural land. The modern agriculture practices and food production method using synthetic fertilizer are great contributors to greenhouse gas emission, global warming, and climate change. The introduction of large-scale farming has led to deforestation and machine-intensive farming, which contributes to carbon emission. In livestock farming, ruminant animals digest their food through enteric fermentation that result in methane production. There are also substantial methane emission from irrigated rice fields. Generally, Agriculture contributes to climate change through deforestation, biodiversity loss, acidification of ocean through agricultural chemical waste, and accelerated soil erosion. Agriculture contributes a significant share of the greenhouse gas emissions that are causing climate change, 17% directly through agricultural activities and an additional 7 to 14% through changes in land use. Number 4, industrialization. Although the Industrial Revolution and industrialization has led to improved living conditions in various aspects, it is associated with adverse environmental effects that cause climatic changes. With recent innovation, human labor has been replaced with machinery that uses new sources of energy in industries. Manufacturing involves the use of large amount of power and the alteration of natural systems. It is directly responsible for domestic emissions and indirect emissions through electricity and fuel use. The manufacturing operations are linked to direct greenhouse gas emission. For instance, in the production of chemicals, iron, or steel, which are highly energy intensive. The rapid population growth associated with industrialization is also a cause of global warming because of the increased level of harmful emission. A large population leads to increased demand for products, higher levels of production and consumption, and inevitably elevated levels of greenhouse gases.